So as it turns out, we have been looking at ways to manipulate the immune system to combat various diseases. And one of the ways is in cancer patients. There has been studies going back probably almost 30 years. This was done in Europe, looking at non-toxic mycobacteria that could provoke an immune response.
Sure.
And they tested it in terminal cancer patients. And they looked at two particular strains, Mycobacteria obuense and Mycobacteria vaccae, with the hope that they could find a ability for terminal patients to respond better to anti-cancer chemotherapeutic agents. Based upon that, I decided to take a look with colleagues at the University of Illinois College of Pharmacy to look at other members of the non-toxic mycobacteria strain. Now, for those people who don't know what mycobacteria is, there are two particular diseases of mycobacteria that we all have some familiarity with. One is Mycobacteria tuberculosis, and the other one, which affects humans, and then we have Mycobacteria bovis, which is tuberculosis in cows, and that's one of the reasons why we pasteurize milk to kill any of those organisms. Okay. We looked at 7 different strains. We isolated defective peripheral blood mononuclear cells from patients with fibromyalgia, and we challenged those cells with these 7 different strains of mycobacteria. And the one that was most effective is called Mycobacteria smegmatis, which is found in tap water, is found in soil. And we decided to test this as a supplement. Why as a supplement? Well, if you're already exposed to this in drinking water, right? And as far as we know, there is no common reason for people to feel threatened by drinking tap water, right? If tap water is handled properly, you shouldn't get any illnesses, right? So since we already know that it exists in tap water, we felt that it should be non-toxic. And if it's in tap water, how do we get it into the system? We get it into the system in that microbiome in the colon. So we, after doing our research on those white blood cells, we put this material into a capsule. And we did it in a way to protect the people. We heat killed it. In other words, it has no possibility of having untoward effects. And now I can tell you that thousands of doses have been taken and we have had no recorded untoward effects. And we put it in a special capsule that does not get absorbed in the stomach, doesn't get absorbed until it gets to the colon. And the response has been remarkable in that regard. This is not a drug. It is a natural supplement. And that's important for people to realize. And we've learned that it has more benefits than just what I said about things like fatigue or poor sleep. We have found people who have gastrointestinal issues, as we have described, of cramps and pain and abnormal bowel habits. If you go to our website, you will see a number of testimonials where we have done videos of these people talking about the efficacy of this compound.
Sure. So to put it in perspective, you know, that most people I think understand, like in the microbiome we have prebiotics, which sort of set the foundation for the probiotics to live and cultivate and do their work. So we have prebiotics, we have probiotics, and we also have postbiotics. And this is what you're talking about here, is a postbiotic that goes in, activates something in the microbiome with the white blood cells, and then creates balance where there was disbalance and dysregulation before.
That's correct.
And this is a real systems approach. I mean, what you've done is, beginning to end, the Be Sure test can establish whether or not there is some degree of immune imbalance, evidence-based establishment. And then if that is the case, there's a problem. Now you've got a solution And I'm not suggesting that Imbix is the end all and be all, and I wanted to go to you actually for some establishment around what other things people can and should do 0 to 7. But this sounds like this heat-killed specific bacteria postbiotic sounds like it could be a solution for a lot of folks that are suffering from, to your point, the testimonials, but it could end up being revolutionary.
What's interesting about this is we tell people we don't want you to use it unless you actually feel something. Right. People take all sorts of vitamins and supplements and feel nothing. There's no way to judge whether it's helping them in the long term, correct? In our world, we say to people, if you take this and after being on it for 3 or 4 weeks, you're not noticing anything different, we want you to reassess why that is. The most common reason is that people are taking certain things or maintaining certain habits that are damaging the microbiome. So, for example, we find people taking all sorts of over-the-counter drugs that will inhibit the efficacy of Imbix. Imbix is meant to boost the microbiome. And I use a numerical scale, even though it is something that I can't tie in with a specific number. But let's say if Imbix can boost your immune system by a factor of 50, that's great. But if you're taking something that causes damage to the microbiome, and that process is called dysbiosis, D-Y-S-B-I-O-S-I-S, and that gives you a negative 50, you take the Imbix and you're taking that, you're still at 0. You're not going to feel anything.
You negate the ability of the other thing to do something.
That's exactly correct.
So let's go back then, in terms of, because obviously it works better if the microbiome is in balance. If the microbiome is healthy, the healthier the microbiome is, the more effective the Imbix is going to be.
Absolutely.
Right? So in children, let's just go back to the very beginning. What creates that healthy microbiome from the start?
Obviously, having a good diet is critical, all right? And that's a real problem at this moment. It's a problem because of the stress on parents for time and stress on parents for economics, right? We're dealing with a high inflation period, and oftentimes people don't necessarily buy the healthiest foods. They don't buy fresh fruits and vegetables.
I was going to say, not to mention food deserts.
That's right, and food deserts. You're absolutely correct. That's a problem. Or they rely on fast food restaurants, not necessarily very good, okay? And that you need to make sure that whatever you're putting in your child's stomach, whether it's food or another product, you need to ask your pediatrician when they prescribe it for you or recommend it for you, you need to say, how will it affect my child beyond this acute manifestation? Learn about what the microbiome is. We've talked about the microbiome. There's multiple microbiomes, but now we're talking about the gastrointestinal tract / colon microbiome. So that's important that we educate the parents because the child's not going to be able to make that decision, correct? So that's very important. And in selecting how we choose our diet, we have to do it based not solely because something tastes sweet, right? But that it could taste healthy, all right? Those are important things.
No, absolutely agree. I think that is why food and diet is like the basis of good health. Now we understand because that's what's establishing and feeding the microbiome. That's our foundation. That's the platform that a child starts with.